But one of the comments was this that came up while he was talking about forgiveness. And this person wrote, when abuse is a large part of your story, forgiveness also has to be, or you end up stuck in the mire. And I went, whoa, I know the person really well that wrote it. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So the next day I wrote Jesse and I said, Jesse, you know that statement you wrote during the Facebook Live thing that we did? Yeah. Is that just like a pithy little statement you got somewhere, that you remembered and you put there? Or did that kind of come out of your life? I mean, it felt like, and then she wrote me back an email. Never do that. And I just wrote her back. I said, would you even consider sharing your story? Sharing this. So she prayed and said she would. So Jesse, come on up. Would you welcome Jesse? She comes up. It takes a lot of courage.
Hi. I'm going to read to you this part of my story so I can stay on track. The first relationship I remember watching was an abusive relationship. I was only 4 when it began, but when things got rough, I usually had to step in and be the adult. I'd call my grandma or my aunt for help at first, then the police as things got worse. My mother left that relationship when I was about 6, but there were other incidents in other relationships down the line. I always told myself that there was no way I would allow anyone to lay a hand on me. There would be no second chances. I started dating my first husband when I was 15. There were warning signs early on, but I chose to ignore them and rationalize. He was only possessive and jealous because he loved me. If I'd worded what I said differently, he wouldn't have grabbed me like that. Soon I found myself in a relationship that was mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive. Over the course of the next 12 years, I allowed him to isolate me from my family and friends. I let him get into my head and convince me that what he screamed at me while he threw things, shoved me, and intimidated me were true. I was I was fat, ugly, worthless. You get the idea. I bought into the lies that no one really cared what happened to me, that I couldn't take care of myself or our son once he came along, that I didn't deserve anything better than the way he treated me. I resigned myself to hiding the shame of what I had let my life become behind a well-rehearsed act that life was fine at our house. What finally convinced me to leave was that I began wishing him dead. I would honestly hope that he'd be in a car accident or fall in the river when he was fishing, anything so I could be free of him and be able to lie to Joe and tell him that he'd had a great father. And then he tried to push me down the stairs at my mother's house on Christmas Day 2001. Joey had just turned 4, and I knew that I couldn't let that be his life, his memories of childhood. I couldn't let that be his example of love. I certainly couldn't believe that this is what God wanted for me and my sweet boy. So Joe and I left a week later. Severing that relationship was difficult, even after deciding that we needed to get out. Being a single mom for the next several years, even with a supportive family, wasn't an easy choice to make. And then at the age of 30, I was sexually assaulted by someone I loved and trusted. Twice. The first time was right after my 30th birthday party. The second time was about a month later under similar circumstances. But over the next several years, God gently guided me toward learning to forgive. He provided Houston as an example to both Joe and I of what a man should be and how he should treat those he loves. Through my sister, he brought me to a MOPS group in Tacoma that opened my eyes and my heart to God's love and grace. And through my sweet friend Debbie, he brought our growing family to Newbridge. After a lot of time and a lot of dealing with lingering issues, I've been able to forgive my ex-husband. In fact, at this point, I'm about the only person he has to rely on in this world. When he finally came to me to ask for my forgiveness, I was able to tell him that I'd already forgiven him. I pray good things for him as he continues to struggle with alcoholism and mental health issues. Joe's chosen not to have contact with him for a few years now, but I maintain a relationship with my ex for his own benefit and so that Joe has an avenue of communication if he ever decides he wants to get to know his father again. I went through a lot of mental anguish and heartache because of the sexual assaults. It damaged relationships that I valued, and often they didn't even know why. I couldn't tell anyone. What would it do to our families and friends? What if no one believed me? What if they did believe me and still chose this other person over me? The pain festered for a long time, but I was finally able to forgive this person after receiving a lot of healing love and quiet patience from Houston. And then I took the Living Free class for the first time. Definitely wasn't easy, and I struggled to allow this person to be forgiven. For a long time, I wanted them to suffer too. It also took more than once to really let go of the pain and anger, but I was able to do the work in the Living Free book, to do a lot of praying, and to get to a point where I could pray good things for this person. And that was the biggest step for me. It took me a long time to be able to fully forgive, and even longer to realize there was no reason to hide what I'd been through. I hadn't done anything to deserve what happened. I've been stuck in the mire, and being able to turn all of that over to God made an incredible difference in every part of my life. I was able to let go of so much pain, and I was able to show grace to those who'd hurt me. Because of Jesus' sacrifice, God's forgiven me for every single one of my sins. So who am I to deny that chance at reconciliation to another one of his children? Yes.
And now you stand and you lead us in worship. I love that. You join, and as you were reading that, for me for the second time, and I was just listening to you, I really think of how your life has become a song of forgiveness. Thank you, Jesse. I want to be really clear. Forgiveness does not undo the past. What it does is it unlocks the future. And there is really nothing greater. When I think of all the miracles that Jesus did, this has to be the greatest of the miracles. Because it meets the greatest need, it costs the greatest price, and it brings the greatest transformation of a human heart. This is the road, I believe, after last week's message about our direction as a church. Here's what I'm telling you as our vision. This is the most direct road to our vision, which is to love God, to love one another, and to make his love known. It changed the heart of the centurions who had watched. It changed the heart of a thief hanging on a cross with just this statement. You never, ever look more like Jesus than when you experience a radical injustice and you breathe back radical forgiveness. But